Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Podlipsky. We're here, myself and Mrs. Terrio are here to talk to you about probability. Mr. Benjamin is off doing who knows what. Do you know where he is?
Yeah, he's doing soccer. He's a good coach.
Oh, he's a good coach.
He's a good
See? He's a good guy. What a nice guy. Okay, so anyway, we're here to teach you about probability. So this is lesson number 2 in our video series for probability. And today we're going to talk about outcomes. So the learning goals today is we're going to expect you to be able to list possible outcomes from simple experiments, and we're going to give you some examples today. In addition to listing those outcomes, you're going to be expected to use the probability formula in order to calculate the outcomes. So this is math class, so we are going to expect you to be doing some calculations also, okay? So first, Mrs. Terrio is going to talk to you about probability calculations.
Okay, so this is an equation that you're going to use to calculate the probability of an event. So what's an event? An event is a situation where you want to know what are the chances of getting some kind of outcome. So we're going to use the probability of an event equals, right? So we're going to, this is a fraction line. That means we are going to divide the successful outcomes divided by the possible outcomes. So how does this work? So let's say when you have a coin, the probability when you throw a coin, the coin has how many sides, Mrs. P?
Oh, I believe a regular coin should have 2 sides. It would have heads and tails, right?
So yeah, so if you toss a coin, the probability of getting a head will be 1, that is your successful outcome, divided by the total possible outcomes that will be in a coin, that will be a 2.
Because
right?
you have heads and tails.
And tails,
okay.
right? So the coin in here, so it has heads, right, and tails. So your probability in here is 1/2, which if we represent this in percent will be what?
50%.
50%.
So it's 50-50.
Right? So that is when we use a coin. Now we can actually use also a die, right? So if you use a die,
aren't you going to draw a dice for them? They don't.
Sure.
Do they know what that is? There we go.
This. Do you remember the cubes that we drew?
Oh, they did learn about cubes.
Yes. So we actually made one. So you have the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and so on. So this is a die. Okay, so the plural for die is dice. When you have one more than one, right? Is dice.
True. Yeah.
Yes.
Some people say I'm going to toss a dice, but if you're tossing dice, you have more than one.
That's
so
the
die
plural
is
of
1.
Yes. So the probability is 1/2 when you toss a coin. When you toss a die, how many sides a cube has, Mrs. B?
Oh, how many sides? I think there's 6,
It
right?
has 6 sides,
yeah.
right? So the possible outcomes on the cube should be 6, right? So those are the possible outcomes for the cube. The cube has 6 sides. Now, my question to you is, what would be the probability of getting an even number when you toss a die?
So even numbers then would be like 2, 4, and 6.
Right, because
okay.
the cube it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now the even numbers will be 2, and it will be 4, it will be 6. So I'm going to count these, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3 numbers. 3 numbers are even when you toss a die. All right, so that again, if you take the lowest terms, it's going to give you 1/2 again, right? So that will be 50%.
So 3 over 6 is 1/2.
But,
yep.
All right, so you can have another. You can find the probability of a deck of cards. You see the probability of getting, let's say, the ace of spades on a deck of cards. So you have to understand that the total possible, how many cards are in a deck? 52, right?
Have you ever played 52 pickup?
Yeah. So, okay, so we're not going to do that today. Maybe later, Miss B. Okay,
we'll play with Mr. Benjamin.
Yeah, the probability, we make them do that. We'll make them do that. Okay, so the probability of, picking up an ace of spades of a deck of cards will be how many?
Well, it's the only one in the
Is
whole
the only
deck,
one,
right?
so that would be
1
out
in
of 52. So what I'm trying to get across is that the 1, this denominator, is your successful outcome. This is what you're looking for. And the possible outcomes is the total number.
So now, what if we were wondering, like, the probability of picking an ace, so we didn't care about the suit?
Oh, that would be, that is such a great question. So instead in here of having one single card, we are going to try to pick up an ace, right? So if you see 52 cards is the deck, so how many, what's it called, how many
Suits.
different suits the deck has? It has
4 suits.
4 suits.
Yeah.
But
so
now
there'd be 4
not,
aces.
Yeah, we're not specifying the suits. We're saying aces. So how many aces will be? 4, because the deck of cards have 4 suits. So it will be 4 out of 52.
Okay.
Now, when you do probability, always try to get the lowest terms on
right.
this, right? So you can go the half of 4 is 2, right? And the half of 52 is 26. And you still have an even number on the numerator and denominator, so you can still go lower. 1 and the half of 26 will be 13. So the probability of getting,
An ace.
actually the 4 aces will be 4 out of 52. But getting an ace, it will be 1 out of 13.
Perfect.
Is that, you get that?
That makes
Okay.
sense. Yep.
So yeah, so now we are going to give you an example, right? To practice. So if you roll a die, what is the probability of getting a 6 only? So again, you got the probability equals what are your possible, your successful outcomes will be what?
Well, there's only 1 6 on the dice,
Right, because
so you
remember,
have 1 chance.
remember we have in here 6 sides, right? So you have
Mr.
1,
Swanton, please call 221. Mr. Swanton, please
3,
call 221.
4, 5, and 6.
So,
Those are the numbers that you see on the dice, right? So
your
now-
possible outcomes would be 6.
that's
So that goes on the
correct.
bottom, and you only have 1 side with 6 dots would be a 1. Perfect.
So that is the
So
that's
1
the
6.
So the probability. So you write down and you say the probability of getting a 6, of getting a 6 is 1 out of 6. So that is the full sentence that you should get used to write the answer with a full sentence.
Right.
Okay? So now Miss P is going to just get the example 2.
Okay.
Okay?
So what is the probability of getting heads when you toss a coin? So we know that a coin is going to have heads. So that's our little guy with the head. And on the other side, you've got tails. So your tails, if you say you have a dime, it's like a little sailboat, right? Or you might have the beaver, depending if you have nickel or loony, would have
Right.
the bird on it, that sort of thing. So, but each coin only has 2 sides. And so our probability of getting a head would then equal 1 out of 2. Because you have 2 sides that you can be working with, but only one of those sides is going to be a head.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. So that's the head. This is the head, right? And this is the tail. And yeah, again, we do that. But my question to you is, Mrs. P, what if you toss 2 coins?
Oh, well, we're going to talk about that because if you toss 2 coins, there's a better way to actually show all the possible outcomes, okay? So the possible outcomes can actually be shown using what we call a tree diagram. So it doesn't look like an actual tree, but it does have branching on it. So if we're tossing 2 coins at once, it gives you more possible outcomes. And so we can organize this in a way that shows us all of the different possible outcomes that we can have. Okay? So say our first coin has 2 possible outcomes. So we know each coin has a head and a tail. So our first coin could either be heads or it can be tails. Now, that second coin can again either be heads or tails. So if our first coin was heads, then our second coin can either be heads or it could be tails. And exactly the same way that that occurs, we can also have heads or tails if our first coin was tails. So if our first coin was tails, we could have a tails again, or we could have heads. And so instead of having just two possible outcomes, now with flipping 2 coins, our outcome could be heads
Heads.
and heads, or it could be heads and tails, or if tails was first, it could be tails and heads, or it could be tails and tails.
That is so easy.
Isn't it? So
That
when
is
you
amazing.
when you draw it out like this, it really makes a lot of sense. And you can
Sense,
see
yes.
that if you had 2 coins, you actually have not just 2 outcomes, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 4 possible outcomes that you can
Yes.
get from flipping 2 coins.
That's great.
Okay?
Okay. So let's go. Okay, so.
So I think we should give these guys a little bit of homework. What do you think?
Yes. Well, a little bit. Okay, so don't stress out yourself too much. Okay, so try this. Create a tree diagram to illustrate the outcomes when you toss a coin. You toss a coin and also a die at the same time.
Oh, so do you want them to like create a tree diagram?
That's right.
Oh,
So
perfect. Okay.
We're going to create a tree diagram and we are going to try to illustrate that.
Okay.
So-
do you think we should give them like maybe some tips
Do
or
you
something?
want to give them a little
Yeah, let's give them
tip?
some tips.
Okay, give
Okay.
them a little tip.
Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to see that you understand how to do that tree diagram that we just showed you. Okay? So we're talking about the possibility of first you've got your coin. Okay? So we know the possibility for coin would be heads or tails. Okay? And then we've also got our die. Okay? So we're going to also toss a dice. So we just talked about the fact that how many sides are on a dice, Mrs. Terrio?
Right, there
How
are
many are there?
6.
6. Okay? So instead of just having 2 options, they're going to have to show us
Yes. 6.
5.
Right,
6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Okay? And so then they're going to show us their outcome.
Outcomes.
COME, okay? The outcome of if they had heads,
So
they're going to have a whole bunch of
6 and
outcomes
right.
available here, and
So you
then they're
gotta
also
complete
going to have it if they had tails.
that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Okay, so that gives them a
Excellent.
little bit of a tip so that they're able to get things started.
That is great. So we also say thank you. And do your practice.
Yes. And Mr. Benjamin will be back for the next video. Okay?
Okay, bye now.
Bye-bye.